Good evening, viewers. Another episode of Guest with Nazir. I hope you have enjoyed your weekend. Today, I have special guest, Mr. Martin Gill, who is a property consultant and wealth of experience about the planning permission, building regulation, and architect. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today.
It's a pleasure.
Tell us about your early days and your early life and your schooling, please.
Well, the early days, I was born in Dronfield and educated in Dronfield. The school equipped me with enough O-levels to leave school and join a profession that I was very interested in, which I wanted to join as fast as possible, and that was the construction industry. And I started with a large firm of building and civil engineering contractors called George Longdon's, and worked for them as a site engineer, doing about 4 or 5 nights a week night school and 1 day release for about 6 years. And these were the days where building sites were rough and tumble, health and safety was a foreign language, and if you dropped a clanger, made a mistake, the site agent did chase around the building site hurling house bricks at you. And you very rapidly learned to double check and triple check everything that you were doing.
Thank you. And in qualifications, so what level you have achieved?
I've an honours degree in architecture. I'm a corporate member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Builders, a fellow of the Architects and Surveyors Institute, corporate member of the Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologists, an associate of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, and a fellow of the Royal Society of Public Health.
I think it's a very good achievement. Congratulations. And when we look at the planning permissions and building regulations, so what is the main difference in these two applications?
The main difference is that if it is requiring planning, it is basically whether it is aesthetically pleasing to the eye in the mind of the planner that will be checking the plan, and that it is not overpowering, stealing light from neighbours, various other considerations. But it's purely on the aesthetic side of things and practical side of things. On the building regulations side of things, it is all to do with structure. Whether the design is fit for purpose, whether it will, having been built, remain standing up in the place that it's being built, or whether it will collapse. And also with building regulations, unlike planning, they are very, very concerned about thermal heat loss to make sure that whatever is being designed is up to current thermal standards.
Thank you. And what are the cases where a person needs planning permission?
If it exceeds 3 meters in height, or if it exceeds 70 cubic meters, you've got to apply for planning permission.
So if we'll see at loft conversions, does a loft conversion need a planning permission?
Yes and no. If we're putting a dormer window in it, as opposed to just velluxes, which follow the line of the roof slope, if you're putting a dormer in and the dormer window, your preference was to have it on the front face of the property, it would require a planning application. If you put the dormer window on the rear elevation of the property, it would not require planning permission.
Thank you. And in what are the cases where somebody needs planning permission and building regulations?
Well, a roof conversion would be a classic example of that, because if the dormer was on the front, it needs planning, and obviously because it's probably a Victorian house, for example, or it might even be a house built in the 30s, but that was built to 1930s building regulation standards, and if you are putting dormers in, you are altering the loads, so you're probably going to need steel work, you're going to need the whole roof insulating out to bring it up to the thermal standards, so it will require building regulations.
And in terms of building regulation applications, so what are the documentations required if somebody wants to submit the application to the local council?
They've got to fill in the building regulations application form. They've got to fill in the, if it requires planning as well, the planning application form. They've got to obtain a up-to-date plan from the Ordnance Survey. So you would obtain that from their agents. You would require to send copies of the planning of the existing as it is and the proposed how you would like it to be, both of the plans and the elevations concerned.
And if an application is failed due to some technical reasons, so does applicant has right of appeal?
All people have got the right of appeal. The object of the exercise and the way that I've always worked is that I've always had a very, very good rapport with all the planners that I deal with in all the councils. And if there is something that they're not happy about, I basically find out, well, okay, if you're not happy with that, what will you be happy with? So whilst the application is actually being processed by the council, an amendment can be made and the approval sought and generated at the end of the application period.
Thank you. We have noticed that sometimes it happens that some people say that there is no planning ever been sought or taken from the local councils. So what are the implications if somebody doesn't have a planning permission and the building regulations? So what are the implications?
The implications, unless you can prove that, I believe the period is 7 years, that that has been in place for 7 years.
It's 7 or 10?
I think it's 7. I would have to check that, but I'm pretty certain it's 7. You've got various dates in law. You know, one claiming land is 12 years, for example. But if no proof can be given to the council that it has been there for more than X amount of years, we'll call it X amount of years, then that council can issue the owner with an enforcement requesting him to demolish it within 30 days, or the council will send in their workmen and undertake the work and bill him for it afterwards.
Is there any possibility that if somebody wants to seek a retrospective consent or the permission from the local government, is it possible?
Yes, you can do that.
So what is that process, please?
You basically go down to the property, the alterations and extensions have already been built, so you measure up and draw a set of plans and elevations, working out what the original was in its original state, the existing elevations and the existing plans and the proposed plans and proposed elevations, and put the application in as a retrospective application in order to validate and legalise the situation. People that extend the houses, even if it's only converting the inside of your roof, trying to save money by not applying for all the relevant permissions, are so foolish, because the day arrives where they want to sell their house and the purchaser surveyor does come round And he does say in his report, evidence of roof conversion, evidence of rear extension on the back of the house, advise, seek copies of all permissions granted.
Thank you. So there is a terminology called listed building.
Yes.
So what is this terminology means? And if somebody has a listed building, so what are the responsibilities?
Right. There are various types of buildings that are listed. A lot of people think that it's an old building that will be a listed building. But in Sheffield, for example, a good example is the Hyde Park Flats. They are a listed building because it's got the unique garche system of waste disposal designed within the building. But buildings are listed for various reasons. The character, the period that it was built, and if it's a listed building, any architect or surveyor working on that building might have the builder turning around to him and saying, these floor joists are rotten, and the surveyor or the architect, and this has happened, you know, it was in one of the architects magazines a few years ago, and the architect said, oh yeah, I can see the floor joists are rotten, rip them out and put new ones in. And he got struck off, because what he should have done is taken heed of what the builder had said, that the floor joists were rotten, and then he should have contacted English Heritage to inform them that they've got a situation in a listed building where the floor joists were rotten, and waited for English Heritage to come round and inspect, and then get the decision from English Heritage as to whether we do take these rotten joists out or whether we do try to save the whole joist or part of the joist. You know, and that is the procedure that's got to be gone through when you're dealing with a listed building.
So it means they are treated specially.
Yes.
Thank you. And there is another terminology, which is conservation areas. So what is the conservation area means, and how the people should look at it when they're applying for building regulations and the planning permission?
The conservation areas, it's to do with the whole ethos of the area. An example, for example, would be most of the buildings say have got cast iron rainwater pipes. So because it's a conservation area, they're not going to be happy about you putting plastic rainwater pipes on some extension that's been granted by them. So you try to keep what you are doing in keeping with the tradition of the area.
Thank you. And in terms of the protection of these areas, so it means the government always takes special measures?
The government take special measures. You do have conservation departments in the town hall and conservation officers. The annoying thing is that I've, over my lifetime, seen various things disappear that should never have been lost because that area wasn't a conservation area. In other words, there are areas that are conservation areas, but there are plenty of other areas that should be made conservation areas, but that involves increasing the size of the department, it increases the overheads and burden of the council, and it's whether or not it's affordable. And generally, in the economic climate, especially that we've just been through for the last 6 years, is not affordable.
Thank you. And what is your view that in these days, while the house prices are very high, people are struggling for the new houses, and it's very hard to buy a new house. And if somebody wants to do extension, so do you think that this planning permission and building regulation regime should be relaxed so people can have house extended or the building extended. So what is your opinion on it?
You've got to look at situations individually. You can't say, well, because this family have got 5 children and they all want to live at home with their spouses and or children, that it's okay to double the size of that particular property, which might be a terrace property, which might involve building up all of the amenity area of the back of the house to the detriment of the people that are actually living in their own house anyway, because they've lost the amenity area where they can sit outside and dry the washing. But it also impacts upon the neighbours. So you've got to weigh things up in balance.
Because in London, for example, people are, I think, in struggle because houses are in the same sizes, but I think the member of family has been increased over the years. So people are struggling because house prices are very, very high there.
I don't think the answer is to allow a free-for-all on the amount that you can extend your house. I think that it doesn't matter whether it's London or whether it's a small village of Emount in Derbyshire. There should be a policy whereby land is dedicated for first-time buyers, and the first-time buyers should be people that can prove residence of living in that area for at least 10 years to prove that they are local. It doesn't matter whether it's Wimbledon or Eam or anywhere else, but you're proving residency, therefore an entitlement to be able to buy a starter home at a realistic price in order to get your first foot on the ladder.
Thank you. Now we are proceeding towards commercial property question. If somebody has a shop and they want to change the timings of the opening and closing time, so what is the procedure?
You would have to apply via planning to the council because depending on what your business was, for example, I will say that it's a takeaway, hot food takeaway,
okay,
that's got a licence to stay open, say, until 11 o'clock at night. And I've seen this, you know, in the Broomhill area, where various hot food takeaways have got a high student population, and the students do pile back from town after being, you know, down at the nightclubs, and various of these hot food takeaways want to extend their opening times that were normally open until 11 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the morning. So yes, you've got to apply, because that can have a massive impact on the residents of the area.
Which is your favorite food?
My favorite food is spicy, and it is curry in all the many shapes and forms, from Indian to Malaysian to Thai to Egyptian to Moroccan.
And your favorite place?
My favorite place, well, in England, that would be Whitby, because I think they've got the balance right. It's a beautiful little town. It's still got its traditional harbour. They've limited the amusement arcade to an absolute minimum and not spoilt the character of the town. But my favourite place abroad, and I've travelled all over India twice, and purposely on the second visit went back to pay homage to it, and I would recommend anybody to go there because it is so impressive, and that is the Golden Temple at Amritsar.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for joining us today. Viewers, I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. I think there is always golden principle. Always take independent advice, whether you're doing a legal thing or a planning permission or building regulation. You need independent advice, and I hope you have enjoyed today's program. Please keep watching Sheffield Live, and you can also give us feedback. My email is shown on your screens. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today.
That's been a pleasure.
Thank you.